All right, guys, welcome in here real quick. Welcome into Big Hitters Only. It is Tuesday, August 26th. It is week one of college football. We have a big episode to kind of get you ready for UNC versus TCU in football on Labor Day in Chapel Hill. First, it's going to be me, Wayne House, and Aury St. Germain talking about game day, talking about Belichick, talking about Chapel Hill, getting some off-topic stuff on chickens, lawn care, fatherhood, birthing, breast milk, all the above with Wayne and Aury. Fun conversation for about 45 minutes. And then directly go into interview I did about 2 weeks ago now with Ben Portnoy of the Sports Business Journal. He covers kind of the money side, revenue side, conference alignment side of college athletics. Really into the ACC, SEC, pretty connected, does really cool stuff. So Ben Portnoy on UNC, Steve Newmark, Bubba Cunningham, revenue sharing, college athletics, conference realignment, all that stuff. He's locked in. He's very knowledgeable. So a very good conversation with Ben. You'll hear about a new sponsor at the intro to the Wayne and Aury podcast. Very excited about a sponsorship with Rhoback, promo code BHO20, and of course Delta Spirits, drink new Grav, BHO10 for Delta Spirits there. But you'll hear all that coming up here. Excited for Tar Heels and Bill Belichick, and we will talk to you next time after the game for a reaction pod, likely on Tuesday or Wednesday, dropping following the TCU game. Thanks for listening, guys. Tell your friends. This thing is growing. Rate, review, subscribe, follow, engage, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. I really appreciate you listening and engaging with this podcast. Make sure you tell your friends. Let's get this thing going as we head into the 2025 college football season. All right, welcome in. Big Hitters Only Game Week Edition. We're recording Tuesday, August 26th. You should be hearing this on Thursday morning or Friday or Saturday or Sunday or even Monday. Game day for the Tar Heels playing TCU 2025 season. We have two big hitters here. We got Mr. Wayne House. Wayne, how's it going?
Glad to be on to cement my legacy as a big hitter.
And we have Aury St. Germain. You want to make sure I pronounce his name right. What's up, Aury?
What's up, Ross? How are you?
Good.
So I apologize. No sport coat for me tonight.
That's right. We got Wayne. If you're watching on YouTube, Wayne's wearing a sport coat. All right. A couple things up top here. This is going to be a very casual episode. We're sitting here midweek trying to get our ducks in a row before the big weekend. We have a new sponsor, and this is a big sponsor. I think it's going to be very good for us. We have a promo code for Rhoback, and Rhoback has an awesome UNC collection of polos, sweatshirts, and Q-zips, and you'll be seeing them on the screen now if you're watching on YouTube or on Spotify. And BHO20 will get you 20% off your first order from Rhoback. So if you're ready to use Rhoback, use a different email, whatever it takes, be a first buyer from Rhoback. You can buy anything from any collection or any Rhoback stuff. It all works, but specifically the UNC collection is awesome. Like, I'm looking forward to getting some stuff from my friends, family. Rhoback, check it out, the UNC collection, BHO20, get you 20% off your first order from there. Load up for football season and basketball season. There's some awesome stuff. It's soft, it's awesome, and of course the podcast gets a kickback. This is the first big podcast of the season, and it's important to remember, like, this takes time and it takes labor to do this podcast. We have Connor behind the scenes who edits every podcast, and Garrett who does all the graphics and things to help the podcast. I would like to give them money for their time, and that comes from Rhoback, BHO20, and from Delta Spirits, and that's BHO10, Delta Spirits. Check them out on New Grav. I think it's called Drink New Grav, Delta Spirits, and order from there. BHO10 to get 10% off Delta Spirits, a very relaxing alcohol substitute. All right, let's get into it. Wayne, Aury, Bill Belichick, TCU, Monday. How are you feeling, Aury? How are you feeling heading into this game? What are your thoughts? We'll get into that. We'll talk game day. We'll get into some chickens, gardening, lawn, family, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, sounds good, Ross. Man, I'm excited. I'll be locked in on Monday night. I'll be up in the press box hanging out with my stats guys, and we'll be as neutral as possible and be watching the game. I think you'll be up there joining us, right? And so I'm ready, man. Belichick, this whole offseason, right? It's been 10 months of up and down storylines, up and down. It finally simmered down a little bit, right? The last couple months, ACC media hit, the New Yorker article hit, what, a week or two ago. I mean, they had, what, 4 or 5 F words in that one. One of them starting with mother. That kind of got me fired up. I'm like, all right, we're back in this thing. National spotlight's all on Chapel Hill. We got game day on Monday. So yeah, excited to see what happens in Keenan.
Yeah, I mean, the offseason's over, and now it's time to play football. And I think that's what you hired Bill Belichick to do, right? You didn't hire him to be a celebrity, to be on the cover of magazines, on ESPN with his girlfriend. You hired him to coach football. Wayne, outside perspective here, Henderson, North Carolina. You live in Chapel Hill. What do you think about Bill Belichick and UNC football this year?
Well, I think back to what Aury said, I think it's the word that comes back to me is curious. Very similar to, that curiosity started when, and we need to just go ahead and recognize the great message board poster, Mac TTP, floated this whole concept, 8 or 9 months ago or whatever. And here we are, and that curiosity only continues out into like, wait a minute, is Bill Belichick gonna lead the Tar Heels through the Tar Heel walk, or will he have Lombardi do that for him? I've been listening to all the podcasts and all the previews, and what's so interesting is no one seems to really know what we're gonna see. Everybody's kind of curious how all this is going to work out. So if I had to choose a word, it would be curiosity. And I think we also, I think they should put Mac TTP as a Keenan legend at some point, because all this circles back to him. Most powerful message board poster ever.
Yeah. Very niche line there from Wayne. And look, we don't know anything because they allow us to watch 10 minutes of stretching, maybe 3 times now, spring practice and twice now during the fall. There's an availability on Wednesday. You're listening to this on Thursday. I'm not sure we're going to know anymore. They haven't named a quarterback. They haven't given us any idea who's starting at certain positions.
No depth charts have been released, right?
And why would you? No. And why? I mean, this is the Bill Belichick 101. I think Mac Brown released. I think he released it too deep on the Monday before the game. But there's no reason to give the opponent advantage like that. The advantage UNC has right now is they have 70 new players, and who knows if there's a freshman that you have no idea they're going to put in at wide receiver who's going to, take a ball to score a touchdown. It's just there's unknowns, and so I'm excited. I don't know what to expect. This is the least. I mean, as much as I am a podcast host, this is the least checked in I've been on UNC football in probably 15 years. I went there. I kind of was not when they sucked. I didn't really lock in. Then I got back into it a little bit. Then I started covering them, and I knew the 3 deep, and I knew the recruits. I knew who they were targeting 3 years before they arrived in Chapel Hill, and so I was really, really locked in. And then stopped covering them, moved to Michigan, and then they hire Bill Belichick, and I've just kind of haven't gotten into it. And so I'm excited to see what it looks like. What personnel are they going to run? 22, 12, 13, 23 personnel? We have no idea.
Well, I think that's what's also so curious about this whole thing too, or so interesting. I got to stop using the word curious. If you were to tell yourself, like Ross always says, close your eyes and just take yourself to Labor Day night 2025, and Bill Belichick is leading the Tar Heels onto natural grass in Kenan Stadium, and we're really oddly not exactly as excited about it as we used to because we have no information. It's such an odd spot to be in.
How much of that do you how much of that do you think has to do with the whole state of college athletics and Bill Belichick individually, right? Bill is a very closed off, very tight circled kind of guy for years and years and years. And also you have a college landscape where you have 70 new guys, and
Yeah.
Cal and Stanford are in the ACC, right? So I think that there's a little bit of unknown with a lot of teams that's not just UNC. So I think that the double layer of not knowing anything about the program and also not knowing anything about the personnel puts Carolina fans in particular in a spot that is very unique. And I don't know if we've ever really seen
You know,
something like that.
it was also interesting is how they're marketing the program. Like, how much does recruiting matter in terms of like marketing it and looking like the cool? Like Mac was always like, we got to be the cool place. We got to be a place people want to go to. The only thing that matters now is money, and being smart with your money and rev share and figuring out scouting well so you can give a diamond in the rough. You know, find a diamond in the rough and only pay him a certain amount. Find the right quarterback. Hit the transfer portal. Like the marketing of the program is completely different now. Now they're releasing these cool videos. They're going on a Hulu documentary that's filming now. But there's definitely like the availability is a lot limited. They're not like making tons of players available, tons of coaches available. There's definitely a different amount of marketing compared to what Mac Brown did. Because all that matters now is that you win, you get the right donations, you have rev share, and you bring in money through different avenues to increase the revenue, and then you pay players and set up NIL deals to get more players. So that's an interesting aspect of how they're approaching that. For the media side, it restricts what we know, but I think it's kind of like just win, baby. It doesn't matter. Now it's like win and get to the SEC.
Yeah, and I mean it's clear, at least in one particular case at Colorado, right? Like they were the coolest, hottest. I mean, everybody like Dion was Dion, right? And like that wore off really quickly. And so I think it's more and more longevity in a staff, longevity of the players, student athlete experience when you're on campus, history of winning. I think those things are starting to come around a little bit more. You see some perennial really good teams that aren't always the sexiest anymore. And so it's an interesting, kind of marketing tactic, but I mean, UNC kind of has unmarketed themselves to a certain degree too, because I mean, they released that ACC Media Day kind of mini movie, and that was cool. But Mac, I felt like you were getting videos and graphics and videos and stories and flashy stuff, Jordan Brand, and you're not seeing that as much. I don't know.
Yeah, Mac also probably had some of the biggest 5-star busts in college football history. So what's better, finding a 4-star or a 3-star that will bust his ass for you, or landing a 5-star that doesn't do shit in the field? All right, let's move on. Wayne House, me and you are going to meet in Chapel Hill on Labor Day Monday around 12 noon and spend the whole day together outside of a quarter or two probably in Keenan. What are you looking forward to for Chapel Hill game day, Keenan Stadium, and day one for the Belichick era in terms of a game day experience?
You know what I'm looking for? I am looking for, time is flying by me, but I remember being on campus 3 or 4 years ago and it being like 2 or 2.5 hours before the game and there being no vibe, no atmosphere, no electricity whatsoever. And I'm looking for the opposite of that on Monday. This whole thing is certainly about momentum and about winning, and hope always springs anew at the beginning of the season. So I'm certainly expecting good vibes at least before kickoff in Chapel Hill and around Keenan Stadium. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping to see friends. I'm unbelievably surprised by the amazing taste of fall that we're going to have. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of light sweaters, possibly light vests as well. I think the game day attire will be fascinating. And then I want to see, as Ross, you mentioned, it's all about money. It's all about marketing. Well, is it actually any different than it's been? There's always, each new staff says marketing and we're moving this, we're moving that. We're having some concert by some guy known as Chase Rice, which, Aury, is he really a country music star? I mean, I know he has Carolina Can, which I always remember hearing as you exited Kenan Stadium after a loss. But how big a star is he? I don't really know. I think he's a big deal, but I may be the wrong guy.
Yeah, I think he's he's B-list guy. You know, I think you've got your Morgan Wallen, your Luke Combs, Asheville guy, also Chase Rice. They went to high school together. Morgan Wallen, those guys are your top, and your B-listers would include someone like Chase Rice. I mean, he plays across the country and sells out, mid-sized venues, but
But
you know,
not a
we'll see.
he's not a multi-time big hitters only podcast guest.
He is
Now,
not. I'm unimpressed with him, honestly.
I mean, he
But
is bro country, exemplified. I mean, in terms of country stars, he might be like a C level. If you're doing A, B,
Whoa.
C, D, F, I don't know. I mean, I follow him on
yeah,
Instagram. He's got a certain persona as this kind of good old boy, country hunting, training my dogs,
like hot
drinking
guy.
Coors Light, hot,
Yeah.
good looking dude, chiseled jacks, country. But he's got some good songs. I mean, Carolina Can's a great song, but I mean that was a no-brainer to get him. I wonder if the level of artist is going to be kind of his level, a little bit higher, a little bit lower. But look, I think it's a great idea. I think UNC. I think I said this on an earlier pod. They're trying things, and I think that's what you got to do. Like UNC is being for the first time progressive and kind of ahead of the curve on some stuff in terms of generating revenue and making the whole game day an experience where, look, not everybody that goes to the Chase Rice concert is going to go to the game, but they're going to come to Franklin Street. They're going to spend money. They're going to buy T-shirts at the student stores. They might buy a couple of beers at the Modella tailgating tent. They're going to create an atmosphere that's attractive to kids and people and stuff that's going to encourage and build sort of an atmosphere around UNC football. It's all about building fans for life, and you have to start that somewhere. So I'm all for UNC trying things.
It all starts with the Chase Rice show.
Yeah, Chase Rice. Yeah, what a country name too. I don't agree with some of the things they're doing. I don't think what they're doing with the fraternities and trying to get them to tailgate on the quad and having to buy a spot. I just don't. I think the fraternities have their houses. I think that's a great place to party and have bands and have a full liquor bar at your house, cook a pig. I don't think that's going to change. Why would you go buy beers on the quad when you can have a keg on at your fraternity house? But anyway, I think for the alumni and for families, I think the whole experience at the bell tower and on the quad and all these new things is great. Weather, Wayne, you kept saying I'm looking forward to this, looking forward to that. I was waiting for you to say I'm looking forward to seeing girls in sundresses, but you stopped short of there. What are you wearing now? What you said, vest, light sweater. What temps are you expecting? And what will you be wearing? Because you might have to transition from a 1 p.m. attire to what you need at 10 when the sun goes down.
Ross, I think that's a great point. And I think this could be you have that legendary tweet of finding Mr. BZ with the sweater around his neck. I think Monday night could be a big time sweater around the neck scenario. Because you're exactly right. I don't know. Is it going to be shorts or long pants? It's a great question. Have to think about that. But certainly it feels a lot better than a situation than sweating all day long and then heading into a stadium and being surrounded by sweaty people too.
All right, Sunday in Chapel Hill. Let's go at 12 o'clock. It's 71 degrees.
What, you looking Sunday or Monday?
I'm looking. Sorry, that was Tuesday. I'm going Monday. Chapel Hill. Hang on. Nope, that's wrong. Stay with us here, little podcast.
The high is 75. I was looking when Wynn was talking about it. High is 75. Low is 62. Look like there's going to be some early morning showers. 4 to 6 a.m. shouldn't be an issue at kickoff. At kick right now, 8:07 is looking at 68. So I think it's definitely like a shorts and I like the crew neck sweatshirt and shorts look. I think that could be maybe around your neck, maybe around your waist. Maybe that's a little too much, but I don't know.
At night, 10:30, it's going to be like 64 degrees. The coldest you're going to get is 64. I'm going to go shorts and a polo shirt. I don't want to carry around a sweatshirt. I don't want to carry around a sweater. I don't want to carry around a vest. Going tennis shoes, running shoes, New Balances, Hoka's, whatever. Low cut socks. I'm going backwards hat. I will bring sunglasses and my prescription glasses. I
Yeah.
actually lost my prescription sunglasses,
Feel
so I'm
you on
gonna
that
go.
one,
I'm gonna
brother.
bring these and my sunglasses, hat, polo shirt, and let it ride. If I can't survive 65 with a bourbon coat, um, you heard bourbon coat, not barber coat. I'll be good to go inside Keenan. Um, yeah. Aury, your Chapel
Yeah.
Hill Chamber of Commerce. Like, what are
Yeah.
people talking about in the Chapel Hill business world? I think that's
Yeah.
super interesting because UNC sports doing well is good for UNC, or sorry, good for Chapel Hill restaurants and businesses.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. They Chapel Hill news cycle's been a little busy over the last month with the floods in mid July and the unfortunate situation at the Sienna Hotel last Friday. Folks have been a little bit preoccupied, but I think with kind of turning a corner, looking to Monday, people are excited. Restaurateurs and other folks downtown, our retailers, on East Franklin are really excited. They know it's going to be a big day. They know to bring the extra employee or two because families and friends and other folks are going to have a lot of visitors in town. So people are excited. I think that talking to those restaurants and folks downtown, they like the 3:30 games the most because they can get the lunch and the dinner. With it being an 8 p.m. game, maybe there's people are starting to crawl 2, 3. Hopefully they get there a little earlier. But they're probably looking at one big meal downtown. But hey, this is going to be like the biggest day in Chapel Hill in quite some time. So pump for those folks that get to take advantage.
It,
There you
it's an
go.
odd question. Is this going to be a blimp game? You know what I mean? Like this,
I'm going flyover.
you're at a big event when there's a blimp there. And I remember maybe the Miami game, the Zero Dark 30 game being a blimp game. Is this a blimp game? Did, did, we need to get the flight path for Town of Chapel
Did
Hill.
you
All right, you got to be all
you,
over
you
that.
saw you saw those B-52s going over Putin's head last week in Alaska? You think that was something? You wait until you see Keenan at about 8:03 on Monday
There
night.
we go.
It's gonna
You
be
want to
all.
talk? You want to talk politics, Wayne, with your employer like that?
No, no, it's
Get into a
politics.
little Russia Ukraine
Yeah,
Trump
yeah.
situation here. All right, so the Tar Heels are 3.5 point dogs. I'm betting UNC. Got to bet for the home team there. I think Ori and I were talking about it yesterday. Giving points at home, just bet the Tar Heels. I'm also eyeing this East Carolina NC State. East Carolina is a 14 point dog in Raleigh. That's very intriguing as well. It jumped up 3 points yesterday. All right, anything else on game day? All right, wait. I mean, look, I'll just talk alcohol consumption. This is a plan. We have a lot of young listeners. Shout out the Deke fraternity. I'm really big with the Deke brothers and Deke alums. I'm not sure if it's a bit, but they love me. Actually, Wayne, we may be stopping by the Deke house early in the afternoon on our way to the Carolina Inn. Say hello, shake some hands, kiss some babies at the Deke house. But I mean, this has got to be. I think beer, it just weighs me down. As I've gotten into my 30s and now late 30s, like I'm moving more and more away from heavy beer and certainly just tons of beer. I think it weighs you down. I think you got to go like tequila sodas, gin and tonics, vodka sodas. Keep it light, keep it hydrated. I'm big on soda water and a clear liquid. Now I will mess with a little bourbon. Enjoy that because you got a long day. If we're starting at noon, 1 o'clock on Franklin Street for lunch. Do a light lunch, keep it healthy, some vegetables, some fruits, a little protein, not too heavy on the carbs. And then you just don't want to get weighed down. So everything's thinking light, and you got to think longevity. So you're thinking, I'm going to be drinking from 1 p.m. to like 10, and probably cut it off around 9:30, 10. Halftime, third quarter. So you're keeping it light, and then I mean, at some point you got to ramp it up. Is that ramp up when you get to Keaton Brewer's tailgate and he's passing around a bottle of bourbon, shots of tequila, or Brian Chacos is hugging you around the neck? Is that when you ramp it up around 6 p.m., 7 p.m. to get it going into the game? Those are all things you got to think about, Wayne. And I want you to come with a plan and a plan of attack to make sure that you're at a good level throughout the day. Don't feel awful the next morning, but when you get to that stadium, like you are loose as a goose.
Well, well, I
Thoughts?
know I'm a previous Big Hitters Only guest for a marathon pod, and we talked a lot about nutrition, and I think we're right back here to nutrition, like getting your hydration levels right now, getting your nutrition levels right now so that you're ready for Monday.
Yeah, I mean, you start hydrating. I mean, you start seriously hydrating Thursday or Friday. Like you're ripping waters every morning. You get some
Liquid
hydration
IVs.
packets. Yeah, I don't do liquid IVs. There's like 20 grams of sugar in that thing. I go off brand and I go no sugar, but just staying hydrated, eating very hydration level fruits and vegetables. We're talking celery, carrots, cucumbers, kiwis, mangoes, and and you want to
You're
go.
taking a whole grocery run just,
Oh yeah.
just for getting ready for this.
Now,
I will
Ross,
tell you that.
I want to take a step back. I mean, like when you set foot on the lawn of the Deke house, like is it going to be a lot of pictures, autographs? I mean, what do you sort of think the scene is going to be? And then do you want me to like help you say, hey, the big guy, we got to move on? Like how can I help you? You know, or do we need a code word if you want to take a picture with a guy or not take a picture with a guy? What's the scoop?
Yeah, that's a good question. Be my kind of concierge, kind of bodyguard. Maybe no pictures with pledges or sophomores. Only juniors, seniors, and alums. I kind of want to go back. I mean, like, dude, I was in a fraternity at UNC, and it's fun. I want to see what it's like. It's almost, I mean, I've got friends who have kids who are in fraternities at UNC now, or her daughters are at UNC. So it's kind of like a different generation, but it's always fun to go back and mix a red cup or a blue solo cup and throw a couple back with people that love the Tar Heels. Wayne, what is your plan in terms of hydration throughout the day? Anything that you're pinpointing? Any timestamps? You want to make sure you're locked in? Because this is no kids for Wayne, no wife. This is loose. This is your one chance to bring in the Belichick era the right way. You'll be with your buddy Rob too, right?
We'll be with all kinds of buddies. 50,000, well, maybe not 50,000 Tar Heel fans, but pretty close. Ross, unlike you, I'm just trying to figure out tomorrow. So I'm going to have a great plan. I'm going to win each moment, win each 5-minute period. I'm going to do my job, like Coach Belichick says. And my job for tomorrow is to hydrate and to get some mental reps in and to think about my normal job. And that's what I'm going to do. But trust you, I will be thinking about my hydration plan and my nutrition plan. And I'm going to get a few extra steps in because I know you're a tall guy. You're going to be excited. You're going to be walking fast. And so I'm going to need to make sure that I keep up with you.
Give me 3 names you're looking forward to seeing the most.
Well, Aury St. Germain, number one. I'm looking forward
don't
to.
count him. Three different ones. We're pandering to the guests here.
I'm looking forward to seeing, Chapel Hill legend Clint Winslow. I want to shake his hand. I want to put it in the vise with him. I'm looking forward to seeing one of the greats, Griffin Kennedy. I'm looking forward to shaking his hand and put it in the vise. And then there's a guy that I expect to be fully geeked up and ready. His name is Tim Smith. And I'm looking forward to seeing him as well.
Tim Smith is a big hitter listener. He listens to every podcast, as does Griffin. I don't think Clint listens. Hey, I'm looking forward to eating some pig with Clint Myers. I think he's a member of the Chamber of Commerce with CIMG.
Yeah.
And he's
Valued
a CEO
member.
there. He's a CEO there and the one of the owners, and he's a big hitter only listener. We'll be stopped by his tailgate. Shout out CIMG Mortgage. No free shout outs, no free sponsors, but if you're looking for a local mortgage, check out CIMG. Hoping to get them on board as a sponsor as this podcast continues. All right, quickly, guys, remember Roback, BHO10, Roback for all your UNC gear. Check them out. Got tons of stuff. It's good golf gear, casual gear, game day gear, sweaters, sweatshirts, polos, shorts, pants, joggers, all that good stuff. BHO20. It really helps us. That's going to be a huge thing. If you use that, we're getting a big kickback from them on the sales, so check them out as well. Don't forget to go to Drink New Grav, Delta Spirits, and use BHO10 there for 10% off Delta Spirits. All right. Aury, how is being a father?
Oh, Lawns, fatherhood. I guess they're one and the same a little bit. A lot of tender, nurture, a lot of care. It's great, man. It's harder than I thought it was gonna be. For sure. I have a wonderful, healthy baby that has experienced a lot of colic and a lot of reflux, and so
Oh,
it's made my nights incredibly. My sleeping is very sporadic and not very long. But she's a cutie and a big Tar Heel for sure. So Emily is a Big Hitters Only listener as well. She's listened to the two that have come out since she's been born, and kind of that's the thing that allows her not to cry. So good work there, Russ. But yeah, it's tough, but it's good.
what was it like seeing her being born? Take us into the room.
Yeah,
The
crazy
the
experience. Well,
emotions, the emotions as a father.
yeah, it's I have a really I feel like an interesting I, right before you become a father, all the guys that you know around you that are fathers are like, at least in my experience, were like, man, as soon as you see this baby, your whole world is going to change and it's going to be
Yeah.
the craziest experience ever. And you're not like, I mean, they just hype it up into this thing and it's going to be unimaginable. And, the baby comes out and it's like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. But like, I didn't have this overwhelming like my whole world is flipped upside down. It was more like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we here. Like she's here. Like now what? Like I like went into like survival mode kind of right off of the bat. And luckily we had a great NICU team at Duke Regional Hospital that took great care of her. But just immediately it was just like I was just thinking about like, all right, what do I do? It's a weird, you've got, you know, I'm on, you got a couple people in the room, you've got a team of nurses kind of standing outside. Your wife is, or partner is laying on a bed in excruciating pain, like as the portal into this world for your child. It's a weird deal, man. Like it's like, it's really hard to describe unless like you've been in the moment, like
Yeah.
I could ramble on and on, but like it's a weird feeling. What do you think, Glenn?
Is there a sense of relief that it like went well, it's healthy and stuff?
Totally. Yeah, I think particularly in our case, Emily came like 6 weeks, 5.5 weeks
Yeah.
early. And so it was just kind of like all right, she's here, and it was just a normal Tuesday, and we thought we had another month until the baby came, and so like for us, it was like, oh my gosh, it's early. We know bad things can happen when it's early. Thank goodness she's breathing and crying and screaming and pink and all of those, good indicators like when she's out. But I think it was definitely more like of a relief than an excitement like initially.
Big babies only. Our first big hitter baby.
Yeah, small babies only, 5 pounds, three
Yeah.
ounces.
Little babies
Uh,
only.
yeah, but old girl's up over 9, so it's bulking season in St. Germain House. We are ripping 4 ounce bottles right now, like it is nothing.
Straight from the
Uh,
teat. Straight from that teat.
Straight from the bottle.
Yeah. People are selling breast milk these days to
Yeah,
bodybuilders.
yeah. So like I get all these like sponsored ads now. And
Yeah.
you can like send off like if you overproduce, you can send your breast milk off to this company. They make it a powder formula or whatever. And then it lasts for like 15 years. It's like unbelievable. But they give you all the serving sizes. You can do all kinds of stuff with breast milk, man.
Superfood. I'm gonna try to get jacked off. If God blesses us with a child, drink some of that stuff, get and then start ripping some weights and get jacked off that superfood. What do you think, Wayne?
Well, I didn't see breast
Speechless.
milk coming.
Speechless.
I didn't see breast milk coming into today's conversation, so that was not on my Belichick preview.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
the only thing I'll say that I remember, I mean, from those times, and something to pass on to you, Ross, is you're so excited, you're so focused, and then the moment happens, and kind of that excitement continues because you're in the hospital and this and that, and then eventually you get in the car and you take your child home, and there is a little bit of it, and then maybe the excitement continues, maybe people are bringing you meals or maybe you have family, but at some point everybody leaves, and it's just you and your family and this new baby, and that's when it kind of hits you where it's like, oh wow, this is new, different, and it's everlasting. I don't know, Ari, if that a moment happened for you, but that's when I remember where you're like, whoa. So
Yeah.
this house, this 3 people now live in this house, whereas only a couple days ago, only 2 did. It's just
Yeah,
Yeah.
different.
I mean, I think like I don't know, a week after we brought her home. I mean, you think about like the simple stuff you take for granted when you don't have a kid, like going to a restaurant on a Friday and not thinking about it, like just knowing you're gonna go. And me and my wife like we're gonna go out to dinner like 3 Fridays ago, and never thought anything of it. We're throwing Emily in the car seat, and she starts going ballistic. And it was that was the moment. It was like, well, I guess we're not going. And so it's like it's just us three. Like we don't have any help. Like we're just gonna order takeout or whatever. It was just like a real simple little thing that happened, but it was like kind of it sticks in my mind as like, wow, my life is really different now.
There you go. All right, let's move on from that. We're losing listeners as the seconds fly by here. All right, I want to talk. I know we've off record here, off air here. We talk a little about chickens and gardening and lawn care. I want to hit on those three and wrap up the summer here. Like I feel like once the first weekend of football hits, summer's over. Like your weekends change. Like I have every weekend free in the summer, right? And now all of a sudden it's football. It's college game day at 10 a.m. It's trying to get all your chores done on Sunday morning before NFL, before that fantasy hits. So we're moving into a different period of our season and our life. And so let's wrap up the summer. Um, I will just start. We got 8 chickens this year. We got 8 chickens in about March. I was going through some photos. I post my Instagram photos about 6 months late, and we lost we lost 4 chickens to the to a hawk or to an owl. We gave 3 roosters away. We have 1 chicken left.
Oh
That's
my
been my
goodness.
spring and summer. Did I tell you that, Wayne?
No, I didn't realize it was that bad.
Yeah. So I'll take any questions on chickens. Then we'll move to gardening, and then we'll move to
I don't know
lawn. We'll
if
get
I
out
would
of here.
ask you about chickens. You went from 8 to 1.
Well, we gave 3 away. We're gonna buy 2
5 to 1.
more. We're gonna buy 2 more, and then hopefully we'll have 3 to get some eggs going. This I was hoping to have eggs like all fall and winter. I was hoping to have freaking 8 a day.
Yeah.
And so we are revamping the backyard. We're going to build an enclosure because the chicken. So the issue was the chicken stopped going in the coop, and so they were grown. They're at complete free range. I'm a big freedom guy. Freedom of choice, freedom of everything. They're roaming around a big backyard, and they would have free range. They'd go in the front yard, go in the backyard, go across the road, and then they would go in the coop at night. And they just stopped going in the coop at night. So all of a sudden they stopped sleeping in there. And it was kind of once I started giving the roosters back, they just stopped going in there, and they just got picked off. And so one survived. We call her the sole survivor. We hope to get some chickens, some eggs from her soon. But she is in the coop. We're gonna build an enclosure around the coop that gives them some free range, some grass, some access to more freedom. We're gonna put a net over the top, build some, kind of build a pretty solid fencing situation, and that's gonna be the future. And then get chicks again in next February, March, and try again.
I mean, Ross, been there, done that. Have been in the chicken game before and totally understand losing them. The only point that I would ask about is they are really smart at avoiding their predators. I remember watching some of ours, like they would go hang out under a hedge bush where nothing could get them. If you're going
Yeah.
to have them be free range, is there something they can go out under besides all this fencing?
Well, the fencing will be. It won't. There's no. They definitely did that. We don't underneath azalea bushes. You've seen my
Gotcha.
backyard. There's no bushes in that enclosure. We're keeping it in the corner, but they're gonna be fenced in.
Oh, gotcha.
Like
Gotcha.
I'm not gonna let them out of that enclosure. It's
Yeah.
just a bigger enclosure, so they're gonna be contained,
Yeah.
not completely free range. And so that's the chicken story. Ori, how is your garden?
It's going good. Tomatoes were a big fail this year.
Yeah,
I was
everybody's.
really.
We have a ton.
Yeah,
We have a
it's
ton.
too hot in the Piedmont, Wayne.
Wow, okay, that makes me feel a lot better. My peppers
I-
are killing it. Like I
yeah,
haven't ever had a better pepper year growing them. But like for some I guess that's a common experience. My tomatoes, I got one good picking and made some sauce, and then I had Romas and San Marzanos, and it didn't matter. Both of them just see ya. Like I was watering them like crazy. I thought I was. It was just. I mean, in a matter of days, it was frustrating.
Yeah, so I bought 8 tomato plants, and we're getting a lot of grape tomatoes now. Like it's been really good. We're starting to get some other tomatoes, but it's been really bad. I bought 8 tomato plants in Chapel Hill. I'd grow tomatoes every year and crushed it, like tons of tomatoes. It was awesome. Bought 8 tomato plants this year, and really have only gotten like one or two outside of the grape tomatoes, which have been killing it. Okra's been crushing. Okra has been crushing. Unbelievable. Shishito peppers, jalapenos. Banana pepper's been pretty good. Basil's been killing it. It's
Basil's
just
been great.
yeah, it's the tomatoes I always count on that have not come through. Wayne, your wife, the lovely Lucy's a big gardener. What's going on in
Yeah.
Hendersonville?
You know what we did that is a true fascinating thing? We planted just to I mean I don't know anything about this stuff, but we planted sunflowers just for kind of fun and as a fun flower to have. And I mean the sunflower seeds that you plant are so minuscule. And I thought they were going to be kind of the smaller sunflowers that you see on the side of the highway. We got the massive 10-foot tall type. And
Whoa.
they're in the backyard and in the front. It's really cool. So if the big hitters only listeners are out there wondering what to do for something extra to make your yard pop next year, and to entertain your children at how tall these things will be, plant some sunflowers.
Yeah,
When
big
do you
gardeners
plant them,
only.
Wayne?
Where?
When? No, when? When do you plant sunflowers?
I was there. We planted them
Okay.
in the early spring, in the
Okay.
like late, like March.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we need
Yeah.
to bring Lucy on for the gardening talk. I don't think Wayne really gets out there much. He's cutting deals, dealing with money, or playing golf. Um, while Lucy's outside doing most of the gardening. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd
Did you
love
have
to do
any
that.
luck with cucumbers?
Yes, crushed it.
Okay. Okay.
They
Yeah,
crushed
my
it.
cucumbers and my okra got like infested with ants,
Oh
and
shit.
it was bad, really bad. Like these little fire ants. I would try to cut it off, and they'd get all over my hands and just eat me up. It was the pissed me off. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
Don't do
tons
any.
of cucumbers. They kind of run hot. They like go. You start getting like a couple a day for like a month, and they just stop.
Okay.
But we're getting a
Y'all do
couple
any
more, and then
watermelons?
we did a
Mhm.
watermelon, like a sugar baby watermelon, and we got one, cut it open. It was kind of shitty. We got another one we're waiting for. I don't think we're gonna do melons anymore. We got the same thing with
Cantaloupe.
cantaloupe, same thing. Kind of didn't really get much out of it. It just takes tons of sun or tons of something that we don't have. Dude, basil, tomatoes, peppers, okra. Keep it simple. We're doing tomatillas too. Those are coming in. I'm just interested to see how we're going to use those. All right, moving on. Lawn care. I would love advice from any big hitter only listeners about lawn care. I don't know what your deal is, Ori. Wayne, I know you don't have much of a lawn, all due respect, but I got to figure out what I'm doing in my backyard. Um, I wanted to do zoysia grass, but
Hmm.
you have to buy sod to do zoysia grass, and you have to plant it in the late spring and summer for it to grow. I was researching zoysia. I was deep on grass and lawn care Reddit, because zoysia is like kind of once you get it going, it's easy to maintain. It's resistant to drought and heat. It goes dormant in the winter, fall and winter, but it's really green and plush and squishy and spongy in the spring and summer. But we're gonna move away from zoysia, and I got two consultants in today, and we're gonna go fescue, normal fescue, I think, but it's expensive, and I'm not used to spending money on lawn. My family, we had a moss front yard. My parents did not put any money into our yard. There was a lot of violets and weeds and some grass and just normal stuff. My backyard now is just like all weeds, some crabgrass, tons of violets, moss, and so I'm gonna do a full. I think I'll put money into it and do a full weed kill in the backyard and have a full planting of fescue. Put some money into it and get it going. I don't know y'all thoughts on that, but really for the listeners, if they have any feedback for me.
I mean, I'll throw out one thing. To each their own. But I will say nothing. I remember times working hard on my lawn, and then I also remember at times watching neighbors work hard and be watering constantly and watering and watering and watering. and then June and July hits, and you just get eaten up. And my mental, each property is different, each person is different, but there's a part of me that says, man, if you can get by with just the lowest cost, easiest to maintain, because nothing stinks more than putting all that time and effort in only to be able to not fight nature later in the summer and just have it burn up. But I'm not a consultant, but I just food for thought.
Yeah, I just don't want to have to keep putting money into it, and like you have to keep doing these applications, and they're like, all right, every time we come by, it's $150 to kill the weeds, to applicate it, to put the stuff in that gets it growing right, and we have to do that, otherwise we'll come back. It's like, all right, when we in for X, Y, Z, and then every 2 months I'm in for this much for the rest of my life, right? And unless, so I don't know. It's either that or have weeds.
Yeah.
Some people on the podcast to talk about.
Yeah, maybe have a long guy on.
I was just about to say, I think going to like your local Ace Hardware or Southern States, like those like mid 50s cigarette smoking, just big, usually pretty round white guys that have done lawns for years and years and years and years. You know the guy I'm talking about, right? That's you walk in, maybe he's got a cig coming out the side. You never know. Those guys, I went and talked to one local Southern States in Carborough.
Oh yeah.
And he put me on some lime. Some 10-10-10. I can't say my grass looks great because it's mostly weeds, but the big brown red dirt patch that I had now has green in it. So I don't know if it's weeds or grass. It's still to be determined, but he knew what he was talking about. So maybe that would be a great like guest on a pod. Maybe you just go in, hey, I've got a podcast. Hey, I'm looking for some lawn help. Can I have 20 minutes?
Can you imagine me asking one of those guys to come on this podcast? Hey, you got to download this. Make sure you have good audio, lighting, and this guy's ripping cigs. And
he probably has like a squirrel on his shoulder or something.
Yeah, he's got Juanita cooking fried okra in the background. All right, guys, this has been good. A good couple topics there. This is exactly what I expected it would be like. 45 minutes in. We have Ben Portnoy coming up next from Sports Business Journal. We get into Belichick, a lot of Steve Newmark, Bubba Cunningham, revenue, stadium naming, how to generate more revenue, SEC, ACC, conference alignment, a lot of like business money side of athletics. So stay tuned to Ben Portnoy. Remember, Rowback, promo code BHO20 to get 20% off your first order at Rowback. That will really help us keep this thing going. And of course, if you want a relaxing, refreshing drink after work, we love Delta Spirits. Go to drinknewgrav.com. Here's cherry limeade. It's refreshing. It's nice. It gets you high. And it's fun to do with your spouse. So drinknewgrav.com, Delta Spirits, BHO10. Aury, Wayne, I got to get your name right. Appreciate your time. Wayne, I will see you on Labor Day. I'll see you too as well, Mr. St. Germain. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for listening to Big Hitters Only. You got something to say?
Go Heels.
There we go. We welcome on Ben Portnoy from the SBJ Sports Business Journal. But first, I'll talk about our sponsor, Delta Spirits. Drink DeltaSpirits.com, promo code BHO10 to get 10% off your order at drinkdeltaspirits.com. We've been drinking these all summer. A great alcohol substitute. First podcast in a while. News from my side. Back from Ireland. We had 4 chickens die. The garden's rolling. And we're gearing up for Labor Day in Chapel Hill. Ben, what's going on, man?
What's up, Ross? No, this is great. Thanks for having me. This is good.
Yeah, Ben's interesting. We've met maybe once or twice in person, talked on the phone a little bit, but certainly a guy that if you're into college sports and the ACC and the SEC, definitely worth a follow on Twitter and read his stuff on SBJ. Covers the – actually, you tell me, how would you describe your job to listeners?
Yeah, it's quote-unquote like the business side of college sports, but I always like to equate it as, instead of being more sort of like players and coaches, it's a lot of like administrators, conference commissioners, like NCAA, CFP, like that kind of stuff. It kind of falls in my wheelhouse. So it's sort of the big picture, broad strokes, like high level sort of administrative things that revolve around college sports, and frankly, anything that involves money, which increasingly is everything. But
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to have him on. Just like with the revenue sharing and athletic departments evolving to maximize their revenue, it's a super interesting time in college athletics, an inflection point, as we've said many times last couple of years with NIL, the transfer portal, and now it just seems like with revenue sharing and NIL, making money is at the forefront of college athletics. So I think Ben's a good person to bring on. Also provide UNC fans with outside perspective on the Tar Heels and Belichick and Bubba Cunningham and the new AD, Steve Newmark. So let's start there. You've been in the ACC media days for football and basketball last couple of years. You've kind of seen the evolution of what UNC is doing within the ACC. What's kind of your thoughts heading to the first year of Belichick? That's what we're. I think it's I think it's one of the biggest stories in college football. Is Belichick's first year, no matter where you are. What's your thoughts on kind of how it progressed from December to kind of the offseason stuff to now we're sitting here exactly 2 weeks away from kickoff?
yeah, I think it's super fascinating. I mean, I think you're right. Like, I think this is one of the, five like most inherently interesting things happening in college football right now. I think that, you've got a guy in Belichick that, certainly has spent his entire career basically in the NFL. One of the all-time great coaches at the NFL level coming to college football. And I think that that at a base level is really interesting. And then you marry that with, all of the off the field stuff with, Jordan Hudson and all of that. You look at the changes that UNC's had at the top. With Steve Newmark, you look at, revenue sharing and just sort of like the continued sort of professionalization of college football. And you throw that all together in a blender, and UNC is just this sort of like spark plug for just interesting storylines heading into the season. And that's, on the field and off it, right? Like, I think that, you look at bringing in Michael Lombardi to run the front office for the football program. That kind of marries up with what we're seeing in college sports, a lot of other places, in college football in particular. And I think that it kind of makes for sort of, in a different way than you had with like Deion Sanders at Colorado, right? Like, it's not quite the same thing in sort of like the pop culture, mainstream, whatever you want to call it. But I think like as a pure just like football experiment and a pure sort of modernization of college football experiment, UNC is a fascinating sort of linchpin for that conversation, just because of everything that's going on sort of there and in front of the camera and behind it.
Yeah, it's like also them trying to position themselves for conference realignment when they can get out of the grant of rights from the ACC. Do you think the Belichick thing is going to work? And what does it working look like from your perspective?
I mean, I think this is probably a cop-out answer, but like I think working is probably, Mac Brown or better, right? Like I think that, if you end up being a little bit better than what Mac Brown was, like from a results perspective, then I think it will. I think there's your answer, right? But I think I'm still a little skeptical. I think that, we'll see. I think I'm curious how long this runs its course, right? Like, is this going to be a 2 or 3 year thing? Is this going to be a 6-year thing? I mean, obviously Belichick's what, 72, give or take?
I think he's 71, yeah.
Right. So like, this is not a 10-year solution realistically, but I do think it is. I think that there are really interesting pieces of this of like, listen, like if you're a recruit and you have a guy who has literally won, as many Super Bowls as Bill Belichick has, walk into your living room and say, hey, come play for me. I will develop you. This is what it's going to look like. Here's how you are going to get to the NFL level. Like, that's a pretty dang good pitch. Like, I don't know that there's anyone else that has a pitch like that, right? And so I think that becomes a really interesting dynamic. I think too, like the ACC, I think we'll be really strong this year. And I think, UNC's in year one. You take that with a grain of salt. We'll see what, UNC is able to do, flip, building out its roster over the next year or two. But, the ACC generally has some sort of an ability to move up and down pretty easily, at least as far as like some variability, I guess is maybe the better way to say it, is some variability in the middle and sort of bottom top of the league. So I think that like if you told me that UNC jumps out and goes 8-4 or 9-3 or something and wins some games, like yeah, like I buy that. I think that's not totally crazy, but I do think it's I'm still a little skeptical. I think like it's sort of I feel like I'm taking the approach with the Belichick thing of like, yeah, on paper see enough reasons that you can like talk me into this thing working and being really great. But I'm also kind of a little bit like, all right, like I'll believe it when I see it, right? I think that, I don't think that Belichick's, gone from being a good coach to a bad coach overnight, but like we saw how kind of south it went over his last few years with the Patriots and everything else. Frankly, like I think there's a reason why he is coaching college football right now and an NFL team didn't hire him for one reason or another. You kind of tie all those things together, and like there are people who seem to think one way or the other that he's not in a spot to be running an NFL team right now. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but I do think it is. It gives me at least just a slight pause. I think again, like there's enough reasons to think, yeah, this could be great, but I do have a little bit of trepidation before jumping out and being like, yeah, they're going to go win 10 games every year. This is going to be great.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it is UNC flexing its financials to show in 4 or 5 years they can get a coach who can lead them in the SEC with the $10 million salary for Belichick, with the 1.5 annual salary for Lombardi, to all the support for the coordinators, assistant coaches, and just positioning themselves in getting their football program ready for the next step. And Belichick, I think 3 years. I think you put the over under at like 3.5 years for how long he's gonna be there. That's kind of how, without hearing anything or knowing anything, that's kind of what I would think. And then, I mean, what if he learned some things for life without Tom Brady? And what if that made him a little bit better coach? And I think I wrote this in a tweet this morning. I was replying to somebody. And like, he has a chance now. I mean, year one, whatever, but year two will really be the test. Year two, and year three. But like, he has a chance to kind of pick his players and find the diamonds in the rough. And you can't always do that in NFL. But I mean, if he uses his resources and is the football guru and hires the right people that we think he will and think he is, then he can find the players he needs, pay them whatever, and then use his strengths as a developer and a play caller and a strategist to win games. So I think if everything works out, like the college game can really play to his abilities, because he has even more control in a sense over everything than he would the NFL in a way. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but like you have control over the whole program, how everything works, and you can pick players who you want. It's not exactly like, NFL draft. You can draft some players, but you're competing against 31 really, really good teams here, man. You're competing against tons of teams, but you go out and find players anywhere. So it's kind of interesting comparing how his strengths as a coach apply to college football versus NFL football.
Yeah, definitely. No, and I think you're right. Like, I think the idea of just sort of handpicking your players, right? Like, you're beholden to a draft and free agency and things like that, right? In the NFL, where there's sort of a structure around this that, there's not really a lot of structure around college football right now these days, and that's, probably a separate 3-hour conversation. But I do think that there is, I do think that opens the door for Belichick to, again, to your point, like kind of handpick his roster in a way that he wasn't able to in the NFL. And I think there's some flexibility in that. And I think that's, I'd be really curious how he handles that, but also frankly, like how Michael Lombardi, who's running the front office and handling a lot of those things, will handle that as well.
So let's get into that. Lombardi, I mean, highest paid GM in college football, according to reports, based on what we've seen from other departments, 1.5 a year for 3 years is his contract. Like, that's just crazy. I mean, UNC football, I would say, is like on paper a top 25 program. Between 20 and 30 is where they should be, kind of where you would place a team like them based on their, student enrollment and facilities and alumni support. And they have the highest paid GM. Like, why is that happening? What does that mean for fans and for UNC that they brought in this guy with NFL experience? How do you see that working out?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think the way that recruiting has evolved has changed from you spot a kid on tape, you go watch him in high school for 3 years, he develops, whatever, you offer him, so on and so forth. Like that stuff has changed a little bit. I think it's more of a sort of, you look at the way that the NFL draft works, right? And there's a lot of information on kids for sure coming out of college, but also too, like, there's sort of like there's sort of like this scouting business that has cropped up around the NFL draft and like the way it's sort of, you try to take something that's a little bit subjective and try and sort of make it a little more quantitative and
Mhm.
qualitative, with player development and projecting things and things like that. And I think that approach has continued to seep more and more and more into college. And I think it always existed on some level, but it's just a little bit different now. And when you throw in on top of that, managing a salary cap, managing those things, um, that tends to that's something that people in college athletics haven't done before, right? Like you've never had a program, your athletic department had a budget for your team and things like that, as far as like, resources and coach salaries and things like that. But like you never had someone who needed to be there and said, hey, we're going to pay this kid this, we're going to pay this kid this, we're going to pay this kid this, at least, not above board anyway. And so now you've got this, cap that you mentioned that, UNC needs someone to manage that, right? And Michael Lombardi obviously has run an NFL front office. He's been involved in that world for a long time. Like he's essentially the guy who can say like, hey, let's put a valuation on this kid, this transfer, this quarterback, this recruit, whatever. Here's our process with how we're going to do that. And here's what we think that valuation comes out to be. And I think that's sort of why you see someone like him pop up in, a college sports space. Now, of course, Belichick coming in, there's going to be NFL ties. You look at his staff, the way it's structured, et cetera. Like those things were going to happen probably no matter what. But especially when you look at with how college sports is modernized and changed, like you need people to be able to crunch the numbers because like, I think coaches have so much on their plate these days. And I think that you wonder, honestly, like, I think it'd be an interesting conversation with if you asked, 25 coaches, if you said, hey, in your last job as a coordinator versus your job as a head coach now, like, which job were you doing more coaching in? And like, I think most of them would tell you that they were doing more coaching as a coordinator than as a head coach, all the stuff they have to manage. So if you now take on, roster management, salary cap, actually running the football program day to day, coaching on Saturdays, like that is a lot for one person to handle. So you see how recruiting staffs have been built out over the years. But then also, again, when you add this financial piece to it and running a front office and all of those things, that is a separate job in itself that a lot of coaches are, not in a bad way, just like that's not their background. That's not what they're necessarily, like, for lack of a better term, qualified for. So you need people like someone like Michael Lombardi or someone in that realm to be able to do that. So that's why you see that.
And it seems like UNC is like it's like two departments almost. Belichick's doing the development and in-game coaching practice and all that stuff, and Lombardi is doing it's like very separate. Lombardi's doing the roster and personnel and scouting and recruiting stuff. And obviously there's a little bit of crossover because Belichick and the coaching staff have to do some recruiting. But in terms of like salary cap, kind of maybe finding players as high school sophomores, high school freshmen, high school juniors, and then kind of bringing them to where the coaching staff takes over. But it does seem like very separate because Belichick will defer roster questions and NIL questions and money questions to Lombardi. Is like you have to talk to Lombardi about that. So, and also Lombardi's doing the weekly coaches show. He's going to be featured on that, I think, weekly, and Belichick's not going to be on there every time. It's the UNC football show. It's not the Belichick show. Whereas in the past, Mac Brown was there every week. Hubert Davis for basketball there every week, because it's part of their Learfield contract. Obviously, it's going to be a little different with Belichick's contract with Learfield, but that's interesting too. It's almost like two separate, a general manager, very much a general manager that is handling a lot of aspects of the team that Belichick won't have to deal with. Do you know Lombardi at all? Go ahead.
I know him a little bit. We've chatted a few things, but I was going to say to that end, like, I think, like, honestly, like, that was one of my first thoughts was, like, I know, college football coach radio shows is, like, this really funny, this sort of funny, quirky thing that exists in this ecosystem. And, like, when Belichick first got hired, my first thought was, like, can you imagine him doing the radio show every week that he has to do, like, with fans there and everything else? Like, I don't know. And again, like, we'll see what it actually looks like. But I do think there's funny, like, pieces to that again, like, when we talk about marrying those two things, it's a funny dynamic. Like, again, like, college football's, there is a professionalization of college football that is going on, but it is a different ecosystem than the NFL, and I think it's stuff like that you see it.
Yeah, I think dealing with donors and like local fans is something very unique to the college world. Like I used to go to those coaching shows all the time, like almost every Monday or whenever I'd go to Hubert's or Roy Williams' show or Mac Brown's show, and it's like the same 30 families are there. The same old blue hairs are there because it's what they do, and that's why kind of they invest in the program. Part of the whole process is you go to the coaches show. You used to take calls, which is great. I mean, SEC calls unbelievable on those coaching shows. You remember the Dabo rant from 2 years ago was unbelievable on one of the coaches shows. So yeah, Belichick though I think has been a little bit better with the media than maybe expected. I mean, I think he's just kind of. I think it's part of it's probably his PR guy has said, hey, look, like this is a little bit different than NFL. Like it's going to go a long way to provide better answers and maybe provide a little bit of insight to be friendly and like don't, go down a reporter's throat for a dumb or boring question. So I do think he's been a little bit better than expected with the media. We kind of saw that ACC media day, I think, too. Got it. You can respond if you want to.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think there is. Sorry, no, that's my bad. I
Yeah.
know. I think you're right. I think there's, to your point, right? Like, these are two different things, like the NFL, college, versus college football, et cetera. And I think, like, I don't know. I don't know if it's just me, and maybe I'm unique, and maybe I'm not unique in this, but like, I definitely had sort of set a low bar on what I expected from Belichick
Hmm.
media wise. Like, being in the room with him at ACC media days, like in the big room and then the breakout room, like, I was. I don't know, like pleasantly surprised. Like
Yeah.
I think he turned on the charm a little bit and things like that. And I think that's just a side of him that we haven't really seen. And generally speaking, it's very businesslike. And look, when the football games start and maybe they lose some games, like that becomes a different tune. And it's easy, now when there haven't been any snaps played or whatever else. But I do think I think there's been something to it. Like I think whether it's Belichick driven or elsewhere, like I do think he seems to have taken a little bit of a softer approach, and I think that's good because I think, like, look, again, like you're still trying to pitch kids on coming to your place or whatever it is, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a little bit of glad handing in a way that's very very different in college football, and so I think that makes it unique.
Yeah. All right. Let's move a little bit away from Belichick and Lombardi quickly. We've done a podcast already on the Newmark stuff. It was an interesting move, and he was Steve Newmark, who is the AD in waiting and who has a assistant AD role right now. I think it started like last week, kind of learning under Bubba at UNC. Will take over, I guess, in about a year as the new AD as Bubba moves to a more senior advisor role in charge of some projects and stuff. I think it's a cool way to do it. I think it makes sense. I think the Newmark move with revenue and his background in NASCAR and lack of college athletic experience can be a good thing in many ways. What do you think about how UNC handled that? And I spoke with Newmark, and he seems great. Kind of, I feel like he gets it. It's not like he's also not some young hotshot either. I mean, he's 55, something like that too. So, what are your thoughts on UNC's the way they handled that move?
Yeah, no, I think kind of what we were saying with the football program, right? With Lombardi and the way that they're operating, like hiring someone like Newmark, I think is sort of marries with that a little bit, right? Like you're bringing in someone from the commercial space to like, I think, I think a lot of people hear NASCAR and they think, cool, you're going to slap a logo on everything and sell it. And I think there's, is college sports going to become that? Maybe not quite the same way, but I do think you look at what college sports requires right now. So like, for example, we talked about the revenue sharing piece. Like that touches basketball, football, baseball, everything, right? Like there is a need for more cash these days. Like I kind of joke about it all the time. It's like, it's like those old commercials of like, 877 cash now and everyone needs more money these days. And when you bring in someone with like kind of a commercial mindset that's like, hey, we can, sell it down to the studs. Like there's something to that. And you need that a little bit these days. And I think too, it speaks to just like the changing role of an athletic director, right? Like for a long time, we see this from, backtrack. I mean, we're going back a long ways, but like 30, 40 years, right? Like a lot of times the AD was like a former coach or a former whatever, right? And it changed and it's become a little more professionalized over that time. And now you're seeing folks from like the professional space, like a Steve Newmark or, others, Stanford just hired a former Nike executive to run their athletic department, right? Like these jobs are changing a lot and look very different. Like the profile of the people who are getting these jobs is very different than it was 10 years ago, or even getting in the mix for these jobs. And I think that Steve's hiring speaks a lot to that.
What do you think about UNC not doing a search and keeping it all internal? And it was basically Bubba along with Lee Roberts, the chancellor, handling it, maybe with a little bit of outside advice, but kind of an interesting way to keep it in house with the hiring.
Yeah, look, I mean, I can't speak to it necessarily directly, but I do think like I think that North Carolina is in an interesting space where like obviously the board's very involved, the president is very involved. Like it's a uh, there's a lot of sort of hands in the cookie jar, for lack of a better term. And I think that certainly like I get it, like not doing a search, the way these things play out these days of it's a little bit under the cover of night, whether it's hiring coaches or ads or whatever. And I think certainly this was that a little bit. Um, right or wrong, we'll see. Like if it works out, great. If it doesn't, then I'm sure there will be people with their pitchforks and saying, why the hell did we do it this way or that way or whatever. But I do think it's interesting, and I think it, again, like I think North Carolina is a very interesting place where there's been a lot of, um, whatever you want to call it, smoke, I guess, around kind of, who's in charge here, right? Is it the president? Is it the AD? Is it the board or this, that,
Sure.
whatever? And I think that North Carolina is just like a pretty sort of got a complicated, setup in the way that it is right now. Um, and so I think, is it surprising that this came about the way that it did? Maybe not so surprising. I mean, you look at the way that Bill Belichick was hired, even like I think it was not too dissimilar. So I think that there's at least maybe some for whatever you want to call it, like consistency and the inconsistency maybe, and how these things are being put together. But I do think again, like on paper, like I think to say nothing of whether Steve's going to be good, bad, or indifferent. Like I do think like on paper he matches a lot of what you're seeing with athletic directors in this day and age.
Yeah, for sure. What's crazy is that the BOT did have a role in the Belichick stuff, almost spearheading it, to what I heard. A couple kind of wild BOT members kind of went off the reservation to bring in Belichick in a way, undercutting Bubba Cunningham. And then the BOT got a slap on the wrist from their boss, which is the university systems president, because they shouldn't have a role in athletics. That's not part of the BOT. It's not like they don't make hires. That is the athletic director's decision and the president's decision. Sorry, the chancellor's decision, Lee Roberts. So I think this AD hire was kind of a affront to that, being like, we are in charge, Bubba and Lee Roberts. Like we don't need the BOT to lead these kind of moves. So it was an interesting change from the BOT's assumed control. All right, let's move on. I wrote a couple other things out. We'll move away from UNC now. I think revenue, this day and age, obviously we talked about it a little bit already, is super interesting. I saw an interview with Kentucky's AD, Mitch Barnhart. He's talking about the 5 different pockets of buckets for revenue. Old school. Tickets, fundraising, concessions and souvenirs and merchandise, contracts with, I guess it's kind of Learfield stuff like with Gatorade or Nike or whatever, Under Armour, any kind of Bud Light, Budweiser, any kind of contracts you have to bring in outside money from corporations. And then conference revenue from television money, conference revenue from ESPN or Fox or wherever your television partners are. And he said, look, those are the 5 traditional buckets, and we need to add more. And that goes into stadiums, naming stadium rights, to patches on uniforms. And I think, kind of what piqued my interest in having you on the podcast was your reporting on the South Carolina stadium naming. So what's your, where is this going? Where has it been already? Like what schools have already made big moves on the adding different revenue streams to college athletics? And where can it go? Could we go to jerseys like in Premier League or NASCAR where it's just like 5 different things on the front and back? Or will every stadium be named? Like, where do you think it's going to go?
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. I think that, look, I will say this much. I don't think college football or college basketball are going to become NASCAR or the Premier League. Like, I think that college sports in general, even with the changes that are going on, are generally pretty conservative about those things and like keeping traditions and all of those, right? Like keeping traditions of jerseys, uniforms, etc., right? But that said, I do think there is going to be a lot more is by the, in the form of stadium naming rights or field logos or at some point maybe jersey patches. things like that. And I know there's a lot of people that say, there's pushback on that, and I get that. Like it's different, it's a change, but I think like I was having this conversation with someone recently, and I think they made the point of like, look back a few years ago, and this is now what 5, 7, 8, 10 years ago now, but when the NBA introduced the idea of jersey patches, and everyone was up in arms, and it was a whole big thing. I was like, how can you desecrate the jersey and all of these things, right? Now we look back, and every single team has a uniform patch. It's pretty standard. No one really cares about it. It's kind of whatever. I think there's like these inherent, this is more societal, I suppose, but everyone's quick to jump on it and have an issue with it. But I think that, generally speaking, like people get over it, I guess, a little bit. And I think that, again, when you look at what college athletic departments need to fund these days, which is, everything they already paid for, which is, whatever, uniform, staffing, facilities, etc. But now they got to pay the players too.
Yeah.
That's an added expense. Like it's sort of, with the House settlement, there's this $20.5 million cap that's been spelled out, and that's going to increase every year. Like there's a built-in escalator with that. That's going to change. It's not like you're just saying, okay, cool, here's $20.5 million. Like, here's $20.5 million to account for that. Like, that's an extra expense where you don't know where the money's coming from, so you got to develop a way to do it. So again, whether that's naming rights, whether it's jersey patches, whether it's on-field sponsorships, like I think those things are evolving. And I think too, I think there's an interesting conversation around the field logos and things like that, in that you've seen a decent number of schools do it. I think there's 4 SEC schools to my knowledge right now that have it. I think it's South Carolina, Missouri, Arkansas, and I'm missing one, but there's 4, I believe, at least 4 that I can think of. And so, that's not everyone, and people have been, a little bit slower to move to that, but I do think there's a little bit of people are trying to figure out what the market is and like, how much are you going to get for that? So is it, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million, whatever, a year? The market's figuring itself out, and I think, jersey patches is a different conversation because, Nike, Adidas, those companies are going to have to sign off on those things eventually. Or would have to sign off on those things eventually, and NCAA rules kind of stipulate against jersey patches right now. But I do think there's going to be some real conversations about how those things evolve. And again, like in a time when everyone needs money, like that's a way to do it.
Yeah. All right. So let's dive into this a little bit. So what major colleges have had naming rights on their stadium? Like I know NC State has, they have Lenovo, which is weird because it is also the Carolina Hurricanes building, so I'm not sure how that works, but I think they added a naming rights to their football stadium as well. And then South Carolina, who else has done naming rights for their football stadium that you can think of?
There's a few. Tennessee just announced a new partnership with Pilot Flying J that incorporates their name in the stadium. There's a bunch of others. I mean, it's not necessarily there's a handful. It depends on the place, depends on the school, but there's a handful of others. And those naming rights are big money. I mean, that's real money.
Yeah, so how much is that? Like, what does that go for? Like, what? And is that done through just the school, or is it done through like Learfield or their like sponsorship partner?
Depends on who it is, right? Like, it can go through Learfield. It can go through. Usually, I would say like the multimedia rights partner. So that's Learfield. It's Playfly. It's whoever one of those companies that helps sell those things is generally speaking or generally selling those. And so I think it depends on the place, but. A field logo, I would say I'm ballparking. It's probably somewhere between $3 and $6 million a year. A jersey patch is probably worth a little bit more than that, or toward the higher end of that. A full stadium naming rights deal is probably in that similar ballpark. Again, I'm kind of speculating a little bit, but so again, like you're talking about. You sell a couple of those things, like there's your $20 million right there, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like naming rights seems huge because it's not going to be just a stadium. They'll have in-game advertising. It'll be a multi-tiered, multi-leveled advertising thing. We'll have signage in the arena as well, in the stadium, in the arena. Probably some other things in terms of ads online. Like I actually worked for Learfield for 1 year at Eastern Michigan, so I have kind of an idea. It's very small. School there, but you do a deal with naming rights. You also get a bunch of other stuff that probably comes with it to make it look like a complete deal. So naming rights for Keene Stadium or a big time arena, yeah, I would think $8 to $10 million a year. I mean, I don't know, $5 to $10 million a year. Like,
I mean, for what it's worth, like so Tennessee did a naming rights deal for its basketball arena, Thompson Bowling, for Food City. I think it's Thompson Bowling arena at Food City Center, and there's different ways you can structure these deals. Obviously, it varies from place to place, importance, whatever. But like their deal was, I believe it was for 10 years, $20 million, so about $2 million a year, give or take. So, again, like that fluctuates, depends on the place. Like for UNC, like right, basketball obviously has a different kind of importance than it does at a place like Tennessee or Eastern Michigan or wherever, right? So those numbers might be a little bit more, but that gives you at least an idea of like kind of what something that's happened in real time.
Yeah, I mean, I think jersey patches, you said it has to obviously get approved through the NCAA and Nike and Adidas or whatever too, but that just seems like an easy one, just small jersey patch like they did in the NBA, like on basketball jerseys, football jerseys. It seems like a no-brainer that's going to happen sooner rather than later on the field stuff. On the field stuff is easy. I mean, they already do signage like very close to the field, slapping a painted logo on a basketball court or on the field or volleyball court or soccer field. Like, it's just a no-brainer this day and age. I don't think anybody's opposed to that. I don't think there'll be much, other than from the olds, there won't be much pushback either for that kind of stuff, because that's an easy way, like you said, to get the 20.5, and that's an increase here and there. What other ways are schools getting revenue? Like, what other ways are they exploring? Because I know UNC is doing this whole thing with like a better tailgating experience, a better pregame situation that indirectly can impact a lot of different areas. You have more people on campus, you're going to sell more beers, the pregame thing, you're going to sell more concessions. But are there any other ways that we're not thinking about that teams are exploring?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's other things, right? Like, I think apparel deals are becoming an interesting conversation. I use Tennessee as an example again, but Tennessee just announced a new deal with Adidas that's going to include a pretty steep price tag or whatever you want to call it, and that's going to go towards some NIL deals and helping fund things on that front. I think that's an interesting space to watch, just because I think, and people may not know this, but I think it's an interesting sort of nuance with a lot of these apparel deals. So, like, if you're make up a school, right? Let's call it NC State, right? Like if their deal with Adidas, and I don't know this for sure, I'm making up an example, but if you see that their deal's worth $8 million a year, give or take, like half of that is probably in that value is in like apparel and equipment and things like that. It's not necessarily, they're cutting you an $8 million check every year. It might be worth really like $4 million or $2 million or whatever. And so I think that, apparel deals have evolved in an interesting way where like, I feel like if we backtrack like 10, 15 years, there were a lot of headlines around how big apparel deals were getting. And it's changed a little bit where it's not quite that, where a lot of schools aren't necessarily cashing a check from Nike or Adidas or whoever it is. I think that I don't want to say it's flipping completely, but I do think like there's something to be said about like with the way that you can incorporate athletes into marketing deals and advertisements and things like that in a new way. You might see more money flow toward more actual cash flow into schools through apparel deals, things like that, to kind of help, boost the bottom line at a few schools. And again, depends on the school, depends on the place, depends on the value. Obviously, these things are kind of a sliding scale, but I do think that that's somewhere that I think there's money to be made probably for some schools. And I think there's other levers too, right? It's alcohol sales is one that there's some places that still don't sell alcohol in the stadium. Clemson came around on that over the last couple of years and is selling alcohol in the stadium this year, I think, if I'm not mistaken. That's easy revenue that, I think is that places have been largely risk averse to for, myriad reasons. But I think is an easy lever for people to pull. Things like that. Those are at least a couple of them.
Yeah, one thing I wrote down is premium seating and like changing how they construct arenas or add premium seating options. UNC's doing crazy things on the football front to just kind of try to get more people in, but then charge them more for premium locations. They did this thing called Keenan Skybox. I'm not sure if you saw that, but 200 seats on the 5th floor of the football center, so it overlooks the field. It used to be where the coaches' offices were, or meeting rooms were. Media press conferences actually used to be up there too. So now it's a premium seating area opposite from the Blue Zone, which is another premium seating area that seats a lot more. So I think UNC's been late to that. The basketball arena really lacks that, but I think the evolution when new arenas get built will be a focus on more premium seating options where you can charge more for alcohol, food, etc. Like Virginia of basketball, I don't know if you've been to in Charlottesville, Virginia's basketball arena. It's like the perfect size for that program, but it has tons of premium seating around the whole arena. So it fits a little bit less people, but there's more chances to sell to corporations and things like that. I think that's where UNC will go when they end up rebuilding a new stadium for basketball. All right, Ben, what else are you working on? Are there any stories that you've recently put out that you can kind of share with our listeners, or things that you're excited about covering the next couple of days?
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff. I guess we're recording this on what's today, Monday, but a story that dropped today about Matt Kelly, who's a lawyer that works with a lot of athletic directors and administrators and conference commissioners and folks like that in the space. It's kind of a Jerry Maguire-esque figure in this college sports ecosystem. It's a really fun one, and I think a lot of people will get a kick out of it. It's just, I think there's a lot of folks behind the scenes in college athletics these days, whether it's lawyers, agents, whatever, that pull strings, I guess, is maybe overstating it, but are really involved in a lot of different things, and I think it's always interesting to peel back the curtain a little bit. Stuff like that. I think too, something that I think a lot of people are monitoring is what's happening on Capitol Hill, and what's happening legally, and whether some kind of broader college sports bill might pass. I've done some writing around that in the last few days, and I think there's some really interesting things happening there, and I think it's something for people to monitor as we hear a lot about sort of the quote unquote Wild West of college athletics and everything, and sort of the lack of, we talked about the lack of structure at the top. And I think there's some headway being made there. Now, what it all looks like, we'll see. But I do think there's a really interesting dynamic at play there. So a lot to digest, and certainly no shortage of things going on in college athletics these days. That's for sure.
What was your path? We talked about this earlier. What was your path to where you are now in terms of the jobs you've had to get? I think it's interesting people's journalistic paths from college to where they are now.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I'll start even before college. I like to tell the story a lot because I think it's a fun, anecdote. But when I was in high school, I worked for my student newspaper and did some stuff on that front. And I was, trying to kind of get my foot in the door before college. And there's a high school sports website. It's called CSL Insider. I was living in the suburbs of Chicago, and it covered my high school sports conference. And I was trying to get some extra reps before I got to college, and was looking for a way to freelance. And I got a hold of, I think my journalism teacher connected me with the guy who ran the site. Said, hey, well, we'd love to have you. We'd happy to have you help out, but, I don't know how many reps, I can get you some reps, but I don't think we can pay you. But, Buffalo Wild Wings sponsors us, so I think we can get you some gift cards or something like that. So I always like to say my first paycheck in college in sports reporting was a Buffalo Wild Wings gift card. But it's progressed from there. Went to Indiana, worked for the student paper, did a lot of those kinds of things, did some broadcasting as well on the side, and from there I've kind of bounced around. I covered Mississippi State for 2 years, covered South Carolina football for 2.5 years. And been with SBJ, right at, actually, I think we're talking almost on my 2-year anniversary, which is kind of crazy. But I've kind of bounced around the ecosystem, but I've always been in college sports, always really interested in college sports, and been lucky to catch some breaks on that front.
And you're in Columbia, right?
I am. Yep.
Nice. Are you related to Dave Portnoy?
No relation as far as I do. Well, no relation, and funny enough, both my parents are Michigan grads, so it's like there's all this funny sort of overlap. But no relation as far as I know. But as working in sports, as you would imagine, it comes up a lot.
Yeah, kind of unique last name. All right, man. We appreciate it, man. Will you be at Belichick's first game?
I'm hoping to. I'm a little TBD, but I'm working on it. I think I'm going to be there, so we'll see.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I think I'll get a press pass for the season. Hoping that comes through. For football season, so I will be there. I'll be there one way or another. But appreciate your time, man. Guys, check out Ben's work on SBJ. Follow him on Twitter. What's your Twitter?
That's at bportnoy15. So easy to find me.
Awesome. All right, man. We appreciate your time. Thanks for listening to Big Hitters Only. Talk to you next time.